did a little experiment once when I was in my early 20s. I went around to give 5 to all sorts of teenagers and people my age just to see what their response was. And I was kind of on this thing like men versus women differences. And sure enough, all the men, the teenagers or young people come out and they slap me and give me 5. And then when I held out to the women, though, they just kind of put their hand right there. And it was almost unanimous, but there were a few women who gave me the 5. Not too many, though. Why do I bring that up? I don't know, but it was an experiment that I did. And, there's something in that. The touch. I was in Spain last summer going to the sites of St. Teresa of Avila and St. John of the Cross, my favorite, the Carmelite saints. And one thing about Europe and Spain that I don't find around here hardly at all, but they have many promenades. And so around ancient walls of cities that are, thousands of years old, not just hundreds of years old, and even through the ancient cities, through the old towns, there are the promenades. And in the evenings, you will often find, especially elderly couples, walking hand in hand down the promenades. It's kind of a beautiful, beautiful thing that you'll find in Europe, which we don't often find here. Well, in today's gospel, Jesus is at the home of Peter and Andrew. And so you actually have 2 families living here. At the time of Christ, a lot of times, one stone wall would be, a wall for one house and a wall for another house simultaneously. And they may have courtyards on opposite sides to kind of fill it out. And if you go to Capernaum in Israel sometime, you will find over the place where Peter and Andrew's house was kind of a big church, which looks like a spaceship. But it's right over this archaeological site, and it's very fascinating. Well, Jesus grabs the hand of Peter's mother-in-law and raises her up. And there's something about an exchange there. He could have just said it by words, whatever. It doesn't say her name, but, Mary, stand up. Betty, stand up. And or he could have done many number of things, but there's something about the touch and something of communication there. And I'd just like to say, too, that even in this very liturgy, coming to receive our Lord in the Eucharist, there's some way that He allows us to touch Him and to receive Him in a special and intimate way. Now, in the Greek, the last part of the Gospel says that He went off to a deserted place. The Greek word is ereme, and it means wilderness or desert. But it also means something like our word hermitage or hermit. Okay? In Greek, there's another word very closely aligned to it, which is eirene, which means peace. And I've always been personally attracted to the fact that the word for wilderness is so close to the word for peace. One letter difference essentially in M and an N. Ereme, eirene. So Jesus, after so much ministry, healing, casting out demons, pouring Himself out, healing Peter's mother-in-law, now He will rise early in the morning and He will go off to a deserted place, to a hermitage, where hermits go. A hermitage is supposed to be a place of quiet, a place of peace, a place of encounter, a place to be replenished and renewed, to go on to live the spiritual life in a way that is generous, pouring ourselves out. And so we take Jesus' lead, His example, again, generous in charity, but taking the time for prayer, to be alone with God. There's a very beautiful book written by a modern saint. He doesn't actually sign the book. He just says, by a monk. It's a very humble sort of thing. The book is profound, and it's called The Hermitage Within. And what he's essentially teaching us is this, is To go off to a deserted place, first and foremost, must mean we go inside. We go inside to encounter God, to be renewed, to go back outside and give ourselves again. So now as we look to the liturgy of the Eucharist, where we will hold Jesus in our hands, receive him on our tongues, let us prepare for that encounter. Let us consider the week ahead and maybe make a choice to go to the hermitage within, to be replenished by our Lord and to pour ourselves out in charity.